On October 1, 2013, federal agents entered a public library in San Francisco. They arrested 29-year-old Ross Albright Albert to ran the largest, most sophisticated online market for illegal drugs in history. He named it Silk Road, a reference to the ancient trade routes that connected China to Europe. Beginning in the 2nd century BC, Albert hoped to create his own modern-day marketplace, except his would sell hardcore drugs and other illegal goods. Over the 2 years and 10 months that Silk Road operated, federal prosecutors say it processed nearly $214 million in sales using Bitcoin. The site operated on a hidden part of the internet called the dark web, prosecutors say. A journal the FBI found on Albrecht's computer stated he wanted to create a website where people could buy anything anonymously with no trail whatsoever that could lead back to them. Unfortunately for Albrecht, he did leave a trail of digital breadcrumbs that ultimately took him down and his empire with it. Albrecht was born on March 17, 1984 in Austin, Texas. He was a Boy Scout, attaining the highest rank of Eagle Scout just like his dad had done. He had a happy childhood, growing up an easygoing hipster but serious student who scored 1,460 on his SATs within the 96th percentile and got a full ride to the University of Texas at Austin, where he studied physics. He then won another full scholarship for a master's at Penn State in material science and engineering. It was a Penn that he evolved into a hardcore libertarian, a political philosophy that advocates individualism and minimal state involvement in people's lives. He was a fan and follower of libertarian economist Ludwig von Mises, who posed government interference in the economy when then presidential candidate Mitt Romney asked, "What is America's greatest challenge?" Ulrich responded like this on his YouTube channel, "You know. But I think most important thing, it's getting us out of the United Nations." Albert wanted to create a world free from institutional or government. That mindset led him to create Silk Road in January 2011. You couldn't type in a normal web address to get to Sealed Road or use a normal web browser. You needed software called Tor that works as a web browser. Tor was developed by the US Navy as a way of communicating privately over the internet. It conceals the real IP address of computers on the network to hide the identity of the user, and it can't be traced by the government. Silk Road's address used a bunch of random numbers in letters that ended with .onion. Over to made this site by teaching himself how to code when he needed more help. He reached dead on a Bitcoin community for him, writing, "I'm looking for the best and brightest IT pro in the Bitcoin community to be the lead developer in a venture-backed Bitcoin startup company. Anyone interested was to contact him via his email rossalbrecht@gmail.com, making his email public with later come back to haunt him. He also got coding help from a buddy of his from undergrad, Richard Bates. Albert had no choice but to eventually tell his friend what he was up to. He also told his girlfriend Julia V. One day, he showed her the psychedelic mushrooms he was growing and selling as a starter product on his new website. Silk Road would eventually be a marketplace for all kinds of drugs: weed, cocaine, LSD, ecstasy, heroin. This fit Ulrich's libertarian mindset. He believed that whatever someone decided to put in their body was their choice and no one else's, least of all the government's. Albert also believed everyone had the right to self-defense when guns started appearing on Silk Road. However, he realized he didn't need the controversy, and soon took weapons off the site after getting his business up and running. He turned his attention to attracting customers. He decided to write a post on a magic mushrooms forum called the Shramori, pretending to be someone who happened to come across Silk Road. He used the username Altoid, posting, "I'm thinking of buying off it, but wanted to see if anyone here had heard of it and could recommend it." He included a link with instructions on how to access Silk Road. He did the same on a Bitcoin community forum, a bed buying and selling heroin, describing Silk Road as in an anonymous Amazon.com. It wasn't long before buyers showed up to limit scams. There was a rating system for sellers similar to Amazon reviews. If a seller sold bad drugs and got a poor rating, it would hurt their sales. The drugs arrived by mail with fake return addresses. They'd be slipped inside CD and DVD cases. Some sellers got even more creative and put them in little ripples of cardboard. The packages had printed mailing labels rather than handwritten ones to look like they came from a legitimate business. Ironically, that backfired. The printed labels actually attracted the suspicion of authorities. In the summer of 2011, Department of Homeland Security agent Jaredian learned of a small unique package with the printed address going through Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. It contained a single pink pill of ecstasy, which was also suspicious because usually they shipped in bulk. Soon, 2 or 3 packages begin arriving, then 50, then up to 1,000 was in a day. many came from the Netherlands, which is a notorious source of drugs agent. Durigen visited an address where one of the packages was to be delivered, chatted with the roommate of the buyer who said the drugs came from a site called Silk Road. Durigen had never heard of Silk Road before. He did some digging online and came across an article written by Gawker journalist Adrian Chen. In June 2011, making small talk with your pot dealer sucks. Buying cocaine can get you shot. What if you could buy and sell drugs online, like books or light bulbs? Now you can. Welcome to Silk Road. The article attracted 3 million views and put Silk Road on the map. Not only did Silk Road soon attract the attention of thousands of drug dealers and buyers, but also politicians like Senator Chuck Schumer, who called for the site to be shut down. The US government was concerned, but not only about drug sales, as Nick Built-in detailed in his book, American Kingpin. Homeland Security agent feared that a terrorist organization could enter the country free and then buy something from Silk Road to harm Americans. He convinced the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago to take on the case as Silk Road came into the spotlight. Albrecht's college friend, Richard, who helped him with programming, said he urged him to shut it down. Albrecht and his girlfriend, Julia, broke up soon after the launch of Silk Road. She said one of the reasons was because of the insane pressure she felt to keep his secret. Albrecht lied to her, in Richard telling them he had sold the business to someone else and no longer had anything to do with it. He moved to Australia for a while and lived with his sister in Sydney. Around this time, he was contacted through the site by a person going by the name Variety Jones. Variety Jones became his right-hand man, and someone to describe as a real mentor. Neither of the other's true identity. Variety Jones pointed out the gaping holes in security on Silk Road. Albert decided to encrypt all the files on his computer. This is the actual laptop used to run Silk Road. He put in a kill switch that would automatically shut down his device by pressing redetermine the key in case authorities brushed in at the last minute. He also prepared an escape plan, if needed, including destroy laptop hard drive, find a place to live on Craigslist for cash with a new identity. Variety Jones came up with all bricks, infamous pseudonym on Silk Road. Dread Pirate Roberts, a reference to the fearsome captains from the film At the Princess Bride, who passed the name on to a chosen successor in the same way. Albert hoped to one day pass on the name Dread Pirate Roberts to someone who might succeed him. Variety Jones got him to see how big Silk Road could grow to be Aldrich Road in a personal journal disclosed by prosecutors. Silk Road is going to become a phenomenon, and at least one person will tell me about it unknowing that I was its creator. In 2 short years, Silk Road grew to more than 100,000 users with sales of nearly 214 million, including 13.2 million in commissions for Silk Road. According to prosecutors, the feds were left scratching their heads as they had no clue. Who was the mastermind behind Silk Road? Who was this Dread Pirate Roberts? Who was the captain of the ship? He became somewhat of a competition among the various government agencies to be the one to identify Dread Pirate Roberts. To better understand how Silk Road operated, Department of Homeland Security agent During Yagin posed as a buyer and made 52 undercover purchases. He also seized thousands of packages, linked certain sales back to their source, and arrested several people. His biggest came when he tracked down a Dread Pirate Roberts employee, a moderator on Silk Road's user forums going by the names Cirrus. He forced her to hand over her account and then he pretended to be her. Durigen, posing as Ceres, got assignments directly from Dread Pirate Roberts. He wasn't the only federal agent chatting with a Silk Road boss. DIA agent Carl Force was part of a task force in Baltimore that was also investigating Force used a user named Knob and posed as a drug dealer, originally from the Dominican Republic, who smuggled of dollars worth of cocaine and heroin into the US every year. He was on friendly terms with Dread Pirate Roberts, who had no idea he was speaking with a DIA agent, an agent who in a twist in the tale turned out to be corrupt. The Force convinced Robert Roberts to pay him $50,000 in Bitcoin by claiming he had insider information from a government employee. When Force reported the conversation to the DIA, he claimed he never received any payment when, in fact, he funded the Bitcoin into a personal account in Believe It or Not, a second agent who worked on the same Baltimore task force was also stealing Secret Service agent Sean Bridges. When Silk Road customer support rep Curtis Clark Green was arrested at his home with the kilo of coke, Bridges used Green's in access to steal 20,000 Bitcoin from other user accounts. Dread Pirate Roberts thought Green to be responsible for the theft. He wanted to rough him up and got egged on by his mentor, Variety Jones. Dread Pirate Roberts, new greens, real identity. Because as a condition Rhodes, payroll staff had to hand over their government ID. Dread Pirate Roberts turned to Knob aka Dia agent. Carl forced to beat up Greed, Knob agreed. However, Dread Pirate Roberts then changed his mind and messaged, "Can you change the order to execute rather than torture?" Dread Pirate said he had, quote, never killed a man or had one killed before, but it is the right move. In this case, he didn't want to risk Green giving up information to the authorities, as he knew he had been arrested when he searched him up online. Knob agreed to do the job for $80,000 in Bitcoin. Albert Taylor received photos of a dead Green, except he wasn't really dead. Agent Force staged Green's death, complete with photos of him on the floor covered in Campbell's chicken and Star's soup. The Dread Pirate Roberts is said to have ordered hits on 5 others who he felt threatened by Silk Road had been preyed for blackmailers and extortionists. However, there was no proof that anyone was ever killed. Albert was never charged with murder for hire. The government agencies were still nowhere close here to figuring out who was Dread Pirate Roberts. The DIA enlisted the help of the FBI cyber crime team in New York, as it had more technological know-how, including experience with the dark web. FBI agent Chris Tarbell knew that in order to catch Dread Pirate Robbers, they had to wait for them to make a mistake. And according to the FBI, the Dread Pilot Roberts did finally slip up about a year after the agency started investigating in May 2013. Investigators noticed coding errors, vulnerabilities on the Silk Road website that leaked to IP addresses. As a result, they discovered the Silk Road servers were housed in a data center in Iceland. By the way, Albrecht's defense team doesn't buy this explanation. They believe the NSA spotted illegally and tipped off the FBI to the service location. Agent Tarbell flew to Reykjavik, where Icelandic authorities gave him a drive with information from the servers. The FBI accessed a treasure trove of data. They could see the number of transactions processed, who logged in and out, and crucially Tarbell and his team had identified that the master computer Silk Road servers talked to the one Dread Pirate Roberts used to log into Silk Road, was named Frosty, and Dread Pirate Roberts was logging it with an encryption key that ended with Frosty at Frosty. They could also tell Dread Pirate Roberts recently used internet from a San Francisco cafe to log into a Silk Road server via a VPN. By the spring of 2012, Ulrich had returned home from Australia and eventually moved to San Francisco to live with the childhood friend. So now the FBI had the name of the computer and could focus their search on San Francisco, but still no idea of Dread Pirate Roberts' real identity. That piece of the puzzle would be filled in by Gary Alfred, who worked for the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. As a tax investigator, he was assigned to follow the money, but instead discovered the identity of Dread Pirate Roberts. Alfred figured that whoever started Silk Road would have had to drum up interested in long before that Gawker article came out. So he decided to do Google searches for Silk Road. Prior to June 2011, that's when he stumbled on Albert's online posts, where he pretended to be someone who happened to come across Silk Road. Alfred noted the username for the posts, Altoid. He also noticed another post, where Altoid asked for IT help on the Bitcoin forum. That also included his personal email, ross.albrecht@gmail.com. Someone with a user named Altoid also posted on Stack Overflow with a question related to Tour Soon. After that user changed the alias from Altoid to Frosty, Alfred didn't know the significance of the name Frosty at the time, but what he did have was a real name to track down. He Googled Ross Albrecht and came across the LinkedIn profile of a young man with rather cryptic life goals. Quote, "The most widespread and systemic use of force is amongst institutions in governments. So, this is my current point of effort." Alfred asked himself, could Ross Albrecht be the brains behind Silk Road? Then came another piece of the puzzle. In July 2013, U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers intercepted 9 fake IDs coming into the U.S. from Canada Homeland Security. Agents decided to pay a visit to the intended recipient. They showed up at 2260 15th Avenue in San Francisco. The address for Old Brick had been staying. He had moved out of the place he shared with his friend and into a sublet he found on Craigslist, where he paid his rent in cash. He took every precaution, including adopting a fake identity. His roommate's new home is Joshua Terry, though he kept much of his backstory the same. He said he was from Texas, worked in IT, which is why he was always on his computer, and had recently returned home from Australia, which made not having a cell phone less suspicious, and Joshua kept himself and ate steak dinners For one, when the agents questioned the observed that he became visibly nervous, he didn't admit to purchasing the fake IDs. Let alone that he bought them so he could rent additional servers to deal with Silk Road's growth, as well as security issues. Prosecutors later claimed he prepared for a life on the run, including seeking citizenship on the island of Dominica, Albert to volunteer to the agents who showed up at his door that hypothetically anyone could purchase anything they wanted on a site called Silk Road. The agents had never heard of Silk Road and were apparently unaware of any federal investigation, but they did document the incident. So in IRS agent Gary, Alfred ran another search on Albert. He found that Homeland Security file on the fake IDs, which cemented his belief that they had the right guy. The pieces of the puzzle finally came together when Alfred got on the phone with the other agencies to see what they all had. Alfred mentioned the username Frosty that he had found on a forum that Ford FBI agent Tarbell, who knew Frosty to be the name of the computer Dread Pirate Roberts used. Bingo. They knew Ross Albrecht was Dread Pirate Roberts in their pursuit of evidence. Federal agents followed him everywhere. They also had a subpoena from Gmail and noticed that whenever Dread Pirate Roberts logged into Silk Road, Albert was also signed into his Google account, and whenever Dread Pirate Roberts logged out, Albrecht also logged out of his Google account, but they knew this wouldn't be enough to nail him. They needed concrete evidence. They had to catch Albert while his laptop was open and he was logged in on Silk Road as Dread Pirate Roberts in unlocked computer was also necessary, so agents could access his files. This would be difficult to pull off. Authorities knew their best bet was to catch him off guard and arrest him in a public place. Homeland Security agent Jared Durgan was still pretending to be SEALD staff members Sirius and continued to maintain contact with Red Pirate Roberts. This communication was crucial to the plan. They hatched on October 1st, 2013, at 3:08 p.m. local time. Duryea in Saudi Piberts. Log on Albert to a sitting in the science fiction section of the San Francisco Public Library's Glen Park, Branch Gage, and started a conversation with Dread Pirate Roberts while posing as Sirius. Hi, are you there? Hey, how are you doing? I'm okay, you good? Can you check out one of the flag messages for me? The flag messages were in the main administrative section that only Dread Pirate Roberts could access. Dread Pilot Roberts responded. Sure, let me log in. Okay, you did Bitcoin exchange before you started working for me, right? Red Pirate Roberts asks this for security reasons because only the real Sirius would know the answer. Luckily, for authorities, the real Sirius had told them how to answer this community question. Agent hoped he recalled correctly when he typed yes, but just for a little bit. It was a nerve-wracking moment, not any more than that. No, I stopped because of reporting requirements. Damn regulators. They okay which post? Dury, Eggy and you all break to his. Now, looking at an inman screen, he gave the signal to the other agents, positioned in the library to make a move. A commotion soon broke out near Old Brick, a woman yelled. You as the man next to her appeared, like he was about to punch her when Albert turned around to see the fight. An agent swooped in and grabbed his open laptop. At that point Albert lunges towards the laptop and another agent walks behind him. Bear hugs him. Albrecht was arrested and taken away. The man and woman who are arguing were, in fact, undercover agents who created a distraction. Albrecht's family and friends were shocked. How could the kind, fun, loving man they knew be the same person who ran a global drug bazaar? They couldn't believe it. Overt wasn't dieted on 7 charges, including distributing narcotics by means of the internet and engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise. He pleaded not guilty to all charges. The trial began on January 13, 2015 and lasted 3 weeks. Many of Ulrich's supporters showed up, believing a guilty verdict would be a miscarriage of justice. Albrecht's defense attorney argued he wasn't Dread Pirate Roberts, that he had given away the handle in Silk Road to someone else, but the jury didn't buy it. On February 5, 2015, a federal jury found Ross Elbridge guilty on all 7 counts. Before sentencing, Albert wrote a letter to the judge begging for a more lenient sentence. I've had my youth and I know you must take away my middle years, but please leave me my old age. Please leave a small light at the end of the tunnel, an excuse to stay healthy, an excuse to dream of better days ahead, and a chance to redeem myself in the free world before I meet my maker. On May 29, 2015, U.S. District Judge Catherine B. Forrest delivered her sentence. You were the captain of the ship as the Dread Pirate Roberts, and you made your own laws and you enforced those laws in the manner that you saw fit. So it wasn't a world without restriction. It wasn't a world of ultimate freedom. It was a world of laws that you created, they were your laws. It is fictional to think of Silk Road as some places of freedom. No drug dealer from the Bronx selling meth or heroin or crack has ever made these kinds of arguments to the court. It is a privileged argument. It is an argument from one of privilege. You are no better a person than any other drug dealer. In your education, does not give you a special place privilege in our criminal justice system. It makes it less explicable why you did what you did. There is no reason to make a choice between these two people that I see that are on display, the old brick to the leader of the criminal enterprise and the old brick to his known and loved. What is clear is that he people. Very complex, and you are one of them. They are made up of many different qualities and many characteristics with no one quality defining them, and there is good in you, Mr. Albrecht, I've no doubt, but there is also bad. And what you did in connection with Silk Road was terribly distractive to our social fabric, Mr. Albrecht. It is my judgment delivered here. Now, on behalf of our country, that on counts 2 and 4, you're sentenced to a period of life imprisonment to run. Concurrently on count 5, you're sentenced to 5 years imprisonment to run. Concurrency on count 6, you're sentenced to 15 years imprisonment, also concurrent, and for money laundering in count 7, you are sentenced to 20 years. Also concurrent in the federal system, there is no parole and you shall serve your life in prison.